is a parent of many kids, and also, I believe, starting her journey on being a resource parent, and also a trauma support specialist. And we are with Leah's Pantry. So we're a California-based nonprofit with a nationwide footprint in the area of trauma-informed nutrition. Our innovative work improves the health, wellness, and resilience of communities throughout the country. And our work is around building programs, helping to support educational programs, and using trauma-informed, resilience-focused principles. Next. So before we get started, I want to talk about what we hope you will get out of today's workshop. Today, you'll learn that nourishing ourselves and our families starts with regulating the body's stress response. Next thing we hope you will learn about movement and how movement and a balanced diet and positive feeding practices are key to kind of the whole family's physical, mental, and emotional health, and that is the goal. You will also learn the foods that help us maintain our mood and energy levels and how to create snacks that keep you going. And finally, we'll explore responsive approaches to feeding children. And you'll learn that how we feed a child comes before what we feed. So nutrition is as much or maybe more about how than what. So hopefully it'll take some of the pressure off, finding the perfect diet. Feel free to type in the chat anything else you might be curious or interested in learning about. That said, next slide. We are not medical providers, so contact your medical provider or provider around specific nutritional and medical needs for yourself, a child in your care. Next. And I have some requests. Like I said, we'd like to keep this training interactive and have you share as you're comfortable. So when you share, please respect confidentiality of the children in your care and also of anything that's shared here. And don't judge yourself. We hope this is a zone for you not to bring up your self-judgment or judging others. And just so bring your involvement, bring your comments, speak from your own experience. And hopefully, I know multitasking is hard not to do, but if you can just be here, we'd appreciate it. And if there's anything else you'd like us to know about making this an enjoyable webinar for you, please let us know in the chat. So also in the chat, well, your names are already there. So we see your names. So if you want to throw in how long you've been a caregiver for foster youth, if you're new, if you've done this a while, and why you're taking this workshop, whether this is just, you need to fill your hours or you really have some issues that you want to address and you're just really interested in nutrition, whatever the reason is, just put in the chat. And I'll look at the chat. Cynthia, I'm acknowledging it's hard to feed foster youth. It's such a complicated situation when it comes to life and food. And we'll definitely share some resources for those of you who work with caregivers. So stay tuned at the end. I mean, throughout here, we'll share some resources and then some other things. Helping kids find ways to try new foods. That is going to be a big topic in these series. And just getting some training, great. Well, let's go to the next slide while you guys are typing in, because it's important to start with you and what you are, where you are as a caregiver. So, as parents and caregivers, right, life is like a roller coaster. And so really just look at this roller coaster and take a minute or a moment to check in where you are right now, just take that second to pay attention to where you are. And even if you're not a caregiver, we are in some difficult times as professionals, as people in the world. So let's start with just noting that where you are on this roller coaster. I'm at the kind of the end of a roller coaster today, so I'm in my at the G location on the roller coaster. Twists and turns all day long. So this is also something like this is also a really helpful guide to help a kid in your care, right? So they often don't have words to express how they're feeling, even if they're older youth, right? Kids who have a lot they're dealing with might not have words. Words are hard to access. And so, a thumbs up, a sideways, helping them figure out nonverbal ways to check in is going to go a long way as well. Thumbs up, thumbs down can also be a way to help kids kind of rate, how they're feeling about food that's being served and how to start that conversation. So use these nonverbal cues to help with communication. Next. So, now that we've kind of touched in with ourselves a little bit, let's bring in the voices of the foster youth. And they're, of course, the central part of this conversation. So in our development of this material, we recorded a conversation with former foster youth to discuss how their nourishment experiences with their foster or resource caregiver impacts their lives and relationship to food as adults. So their voices will be included in these next few workshops. And we have Jasmine and Isaac, and they talk with Vanessa Davis, who's a colleague of ours and a former foster youth herself, and a kinship caregiver who now works around, advocacy for foster youth and making, helping to develop the resources available for them. Next slide, we'll play a little station. Hopefully the sound works. If the sound doesn't work, just put a thumbs down in the emoji.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Davis. I develop and facilitate programs that cultivate healing for organizations that serve foster youth and for communities of people who have been negatively impacted by systems in under-resourced communities. Food and nourishment can be challenging for many families, but especially for resource families. In addition to my work with former foster youth, I spent 16 years in the foster care system and struggled with learning how to nourish myself when I became emancipated from foster care. I eventually became a kinship caregiver for 10 years with my siblings and have also learned how challenging mealtimes and feeding can be. I invited 3 young adults who have transitioned out of foster care, Samuel, Jasmine, and Isaac, to offer their insight for caregivers and youth who are navigating through these challenges. In these videos, we talk about how the foster care experience affected our relationship to food. We also share how we learned to develop our relationship with food as young adults. We hope that caregivers come to recognize the powerful influence they can have on the foster youth's ability to nourish and care for themselves. We also hope to point the way forward for teens and young adults who have experienced the upheavals of foster care to build a nourishing life for themselves.
In foster care, the 2 homes I remember, obviously, the one I got adopted, the family that adopted me, and then the foster family I was with prior. Both of them loved me very much and spoiled me to the fullest. But my beginning foster home, they junk food, sweets, whatever I wanted, I could grab. And that was having an effect on me whenever I would go visit my grandparents before they had became my foster parents, because they were trying to have me on a set meal and, good food that their country. Southern, always cooking good stuff. But it was healthy. They did it in a healthy way. My grandma's a little health freak, so she's nursing everything. So she knew how to get down good, but still keep it healthy and have portions and everything. But I wasn't trying to eat nothing like that. I wasn't trying to eat string meats or some potatoes. Yeah. Now I am. Before, I wasn't trying to eat that. I was trying to get some chicken nuggets from a Happy Meal. That's what I was worried about. And then transitioning into that, it was difficult because I'm over here literally crying, throwing tantrums because I'm not getting the food that I want. But gradually transitioning to that and then keeping it so consistent with me and stable every day, I grew to like it. It made me want to learn, like, okay, so this is how you make it taste good. Let me learn how to cook it. What do I need to be able to cook it? So it definitely gave me variety and options. Like, okay, there's more than just this junk food right here. Other stuff that's really good for you that tastes just as good as that too. So it was a pretty good influence from the beginning to like the ending of being there. So it was pretty good.
Yeah. So you also had
really welcoming. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yes, like it was super fun with the eating wise. With the like food, because she's always going above and beyond, trying to make little cute meals that were interesting. But it got my attention to eat it. So like her creativity, beyond amazing.
Yes, yes, I love that.
Yeah, being in the establishment I was in and who I was around, it was cooking nonstop. Barely ate out. When we did, it was like a treat. So it was like special. And I got my Happy Meal. now it was a reward. Now I got to earn it, right?
Right.
But
this
everything
is the
else,
second home that you were talking about.
The second home. So from that, I cook. I make sure I'm cooking. I'm in the kitchen. I tried my hardest. Try not, like we were talking, trying not to eat out as much. Trying to set an actual schedule. Like I have kids. I'm a single mom. I'm doing this, so I got to make sure they're healthy too. My boys are active and they're, but one thing I do is I let them cook with me. I show them, I tell them what I'm cooking, what it's good for, how it's healthy. I tell them like the food pyramid. I let them know everything. Like, okay, now why aren't you supposed to be having this? Because, okay, and why aren't you supposed to be having it right now at this exact moment? Okay, so you understand. It just gives it a little bit of structure as well. My son, he doesn't have the problem I did. I made sure I introduced vegetables to them as kids and made sure I always have it around the house. I love tomatoes, just eating raw tomatoes. So they'll, oh, what's that? Can I take a bite? You're really eating that, Mom? Just like that? Let me take a bite. Oh, go ahead, take a bite. Oh, this is good. It's juicy, Mom. Like that. Yeah, keep eating it. It's good. And then just having that influence and being that I don't what do you say, like not a mentor, but role model for my nurturer for my child. That's really good. And he eats all his vegetables. They all do, and then they know, okay, well now that I've ate this, could I have this? And then they try to portion it out themselves. Mom, I'm only gonna take a little slice of this because or whatever it is. And so that's good, talking to them on why I do certain things that I do. They get to understand it. So it helped me not just with myself, but it helped me with my kids. So now they're going to be in the kitchen, cooking, learning, and being able to teach their kids the same thing.
Jasmine has learned that creating routines, providing structure, and making intentional food choices are important to good nourishment. Research shows that using meal times to create safety, stability, and positive connection is as important as the food we eat. How does it work in your home? Do you take time to give thanks before eating? Does one person do the cooking and the other clean up? Do you take a short walk after dinner? Is there a special meal like pizza Fridays or pancakes on Sundays that everyone enjoys together? Pause here to think about the kinds of regular food and mealtime habits and routines we do or can build into our lives.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed hearing from Jasmine as much as I get a kick out of just hearing her be so enthusiastic about nourishing her own kids, just from that small influence of her caregiver. So I'd love to see in the chat if anyone has some habits or routines. It could just be one thing. It doesn't have to be the whole package that you have at home that help create this sense of stability and consistency and caring. And I see Margaret just cooking and nourishing meals every day. You do spend a lot of time, right? And you don't have any control of how it will be received, or you don't have a lot of control. But that practice can go a long way in the long run. So anyone have anything else that they want to put in the chat that they feel is a good, consistent thing that they're able to do in their home? Yeah, having children help in the meal planning and a new recipe, right? If that's a practice you can kind of just do regularly, that really builds so many skills for them. Sunday night dinner. Right. It doesn't, right. You can't always do it every night, but if you can pick one time that works really well, um, that can make a difference. And I want to emphasize, right, the goal is to pick things that you can sustain, that don't require you to bend over backwards and stress yourself over and over again. So the goal is to have things that you can just keep going and doing and maybe add on to. So by paying attention to how you approach food and nutrition in your home, you have this power over the life of a child and future generations in ways you might not envision right now. So our goal is really to help you find these ways to do that without adding stress or creating more stress for the child, especially, right, who's experiencing loss and hardship. So we like to say that the motto, you can go to the next slide. See. Go to the next. Yep, the motto for our class comes from Charlie Slaughter, who says, 4 things are served at the table: love, care, connection, and food. So although food is important, there are other things served at the table that are also important. We must first serve these things before we can get to the food. So again, we're going to talk about how we feed children before we talk about what we feed children and what kinds of foods are best for their growing bodies. And I see I see a lot of expertise in the room already, so I'm glad to have you all contributing to the session. So let's go to the next slide, Christine, and let's go back to, you all, right? You started with this mention of, the how we feed, and how it starts with kind of you as a caregiver. And it starts, feeding with children starts with nourishing and caring for ourselves. And we're going to talk about healthy habits for you first, and then we'll get to, how we approach things with kids. So I'd love to see in the chat, how do you approach creating a safe and nourishing home environment? What's important to you? What's one thing that's important about creating a safe and nourishing home environment? Jocelyn, bringing culture into the meal planning by incorporating the child's favorite meal. Right, helping the child, connecting the child to something that's important to them. And Christine, you can kind of click through the bullets there, because these bullets connect to the things that are coming through the chat. Right, we're being responsive to a child's needs, providing some consistency, warmth, and connection, being able to support through challenges, and attuning to your stress level, right? So, every time we are supporting a child, we want to make sure our own stress does not become a barrier to a safe and nourishing environment. Sometimes stress is in such a normal state that we don't even realize it, and it might be impacting. So we really want to talk about next tuning to your own stress levels and the response as the first step. So let's talk a little bit about stress and how when we can notice when our bodies go into stress mode and notice what's happening, it can really be helpful about the decisions you make going forward. So you might have heard this before: dysregulated people cannot help others. This is the mantra of a caregiver. If you want to be supportive of a child, your regulation has to be important. So dysregulation, if you've never heard that term, means it's difficult to manage our own emotional reactions without losing control or shutting down. We can go either way. We can go kind of off the hook or shut down and not be able to deal, right? Our emotions, when dysregulation happens, everything feels really overly intense and we can't manage our behavior. We might even act impulsively. So it's really important to notice the signs of stress and dysregulation. And so when you're dealing with children who are prone to be dysregulated, even if they haven't been through trauma, children are just wired to be reactive. That's how they're made. So when we want to help kids get back to a more regulated state, it's really hard to do if you're in a dysregulated state. So, if you're stressed about something in your life and a child starts crying, you probably notice that it's much more likely that you're going to snap and maybe escalate things and make the problem worse. And why this connects to nourishment is because a child who's struggling cannot easily adapt to new things or learn or behave in a different way until they're regulated. And they learn to regulate by modeling themselves against how we're regulated, the adult that's taking care of them. They will match your regulation. So they need adults' help. They can't do it on their own. So in the chat, let's go to the next slide. Type in, how can you tell when you're stressed or dysregulated? Do you have any signs in your body, namely, that tell you that you're dysregulated? Christine, why don't you hop over to the next slide? Because maybe this slide will help jog people and see if any of these things sound familiar. You're distracted. That's good, Jocelyn, because if stress shows up in like our heads and our minds, our brains, we're sensitive. It's hard to concentrate. Vision, our eyes get hurt, they twitch. That happens to me often. You might get dry mouth or your teeth, your jaws clench up. Our skin might, get sweaty or flushed. Margaret, I see anxiousness, shaky, frustrated, fatigue, yes. Next slide has some more, if any of these sound familiar to you. So we also have, you can go next slide, Christine. Muscles could tense up or tremble, breathing. We hold our breath often when we're stressed. So that makes it worse. We're not getting oxygen into our bodies. That could be a problem. Our heart rate increases and blood pressure. So sleep, if you're trying to sleep, that's really hard to do. And appetite changes, nausea, stomach pain. So in our later sessions, we're going to talk about that and bowel and bladder control. Those are things that get affected. And these are not things you choose to do. The body is built this way. So sometimes we might not recognize we're stressed, but if you sort of know that, oh, your muscles tense, like your neck goes in spasms, that might be the sign you need to slow yourself down, right? If you can identify kind of what happens in your body, that is a great way to kind of realize that you are dysregulated. So if you're dealing with a kid, then you might want to give yourself a timeout first. And once we do this, right, we can then kind of turn on the thing, right, 3 breaths or withdrawal and get quiet. You can choose next, what's the thing that you have to do. So, we don't have time. There's so many things that you can find that can work for you, and it's all different for everybody else. So hopefully you've found some things, or you continue to practice things. Taking that time out, boy, yeah. if you can find something that will be super helpful. So I also want to introduce you to this technique. I don't know if anyone's seen this before. It's a technique called HALT. And it's one you can use as a caregiver when feeling triggered by, a child's behavior or stressful moments. And when we feel the urge to kind of overreact, if we can kind of take that pause, take a minute, take a second, and then get to the halt. So the first H, you can ask yourself, is this child or me? Do we need a snack? Are we hungry? Do we need to adjust blood sugar? How many children kind of turn into these monsters when they are just a little hungry? The next thing is A, angry. Sometimes something just emotional has happened and it's really hard to come down. So think, is there anger going on? And so the behavior might not tell you exactly what's going on. So you kind of have to go through these checklists to see. The next thing is lonely, right? So we all feel like we're missing attention, we're missing connection, we're missing affection. I just recently learned that I think we need about 10 hugs a day to really get regulated. And I know I don't think I get that. So I'm going to try and get more hugs in. And then T, sometimes it's people talk about it as thirsty or tired. And I think of it as both. Rest, taking a break, or sometimes thirst. The brain needs water to be at its best. Surprisingly, our brain runs on water. And so that might be a simple to just have a drink of water. These are some really important ways to sort of begin to troubleshoot kind of these outbursts or these moments that we might be having, or the meltdowns we might be having, or the kids might be having. Next slide. Another really important one when it comes to adults and kids, both, is movement. So notice we haven't really talked much about nutrition because I really want to kind of start with some more basic things that really, when we're dealing with behavior and challenges, that really are more accessible in the moment. And then we'll get to nutrition. But first, movement. This is a really important mechanism for getting our bodies and our minds on track. We know that it's extremely important for kids' brains and body development to move frequently, but it's also extremely important to incorporate daily movement in your life as an adult. It could be really small amounts of movement. This has been my practice for the last couple of years, to just get up and move around. It's not a workout, but it makes a difference. And it really makes us better able to handle and recover from stress. It wires us to better recovery. So movement helps with reducing stress hormones. It increases the feel-good hormones. So it does both, right? Gives us it relaxes the nervous system and helps to reduce pain. Improves mood, sleep, energy, and concentration. So if you're not getting your sleep and your energy fed, that just makes it even harder to deal. And then immunity. So, right, sick people can't do as well as well people. So these are all proven ways that movement can really help the body. And trying to incorporate it in any small ways is a great way to start. So before I finish up the section, let's share our best practices. What are some ways you manage a heated moment, or other habits, either, the ones I've shared or others that you've used to reduce your stress response. I'm going to it might be silent for a little bit. Let's see, hopefully some comments coming through the chat. Jocelyn already shared her 3 breaths, taking a break, taking a walk, or just sitting outside. Yeah, if the children are telling you, that's great. It's the whole family is working on the deep breaths. Prayer, yes. Saying you have need time to think. Ah, Christine, singing and humming obnoxiously. That's a great strategy. I've heard that people, that's been a thing I've heard about, like when you're dealing with kids and they're fighting. Is that what you mean? You just started kind of be obnoxious and sing? Yeah, yeah. I've heard that's a good one for just breaking the tension in the household. Yeah, so I see, I see Sherry talks about sitting and reading and bike riding and doing these things, right? These things can even, when you do it when you're not in the moment, help to make your nervous system wired to be able to relax in stress. So that's like practice, it's like training. And then you can access it when the stress arises. So just these little bits can go a long way. So I'm going to pass it on now. We're going to talk about the food.
Thanks, Monica. So as Monica said, we were talking around food, but not directly talking about food, but now we're ready to talk about food. So how we eat can also help us and help the other people in our home be more regulated. So we're going to talk about food, mood, and energy. And this is about how food can improve our stress response and our family stress response and help us handle those stressful, challenging times. Next slide. So a good way to understand the relationship between food, mood, and energy is to think about a fire. So having a well-balanced diet is like building a fire with big logs instead of with little sticks. Your fire is going to burn brighter and stronger. So what are some of the things that put your fire out too fast? So you can click through those: skipping meals, sugar, caffeine, and highly processed snacks. And it makes sense that we crave all of those things: sugar, salt, caffeine, and highly processed snacks when we're stressed and tired and down, because they give us quick energy and they taste good, right? But these foods can also cause a crash when that like high energy feeling wears off, and then that can make our energy and our mood worse. Some of us might skip meals when we're anxious or tired or in a hurry, and that also causes mood and energy crashes, and then can also lead to overeating foods that you don't want to eat later on. So I don't know, raise your hand if any of this sounds familiar, and I'm going to raise my hand. I guess Christine says yes. I can't see it. Monica says yes. Can't see everybody else. But this is, so I'm saying this is normal. This is common. This is not saying you're bad when you do this. This is what we do. Next slide. So think about, I just want you to think about it for a second. How does, whoops, sorry, I'm in the wrong place. How does what you eat affect how you feel? And how does how you feel affect how you eat? They're really all tied up together. Next slide. So stress affects our mood and energy. And our mood and energy influence how we feed ourselves, and how we feed ourselves then feeds back and influences our mood and energy, right? It's really all tied together. Getting help to reduce the stress in our lives is very important, but stressful things are inevitable. So we need to find some kind of healthy stress responses for ourselves and our families. And one way to do that, one way to improve our stress response, we talked about using movement, but another way is to eat foods that nourish our mind and support our nervous system. So again, food's not going to fix what causes our stress, but it can help us handle our stress in better ways. So our mood and energy levels are really better when we eat a diet that contains healthy fats and foods that are high in fiber, a lot of lean protein, plenty of fruits and vegetables, and when we drink enough water. So protein is going to help fill us up, and it gives us amino acids that help us have steady moods. So if you eat meat, you can choose lean meats like the meat and the chicken shown here. Fish is a great protein. It also has healthy fats. Beans have both protein and fiber. We can go to the next slide. So fiber is another food that helps us stay full for hours so that we don't have that big energy crash, and it slows down our energy absorption so our energy lasts longer. So you can see a lot of pictures of high fiber foods here, but tell me in the chat, what are some of your favorite high fiber foods? I don't need Meat, I eat some fish, but so I know beans for me are one of my big high fiber foods. Anyone else? Nuts. And nuts are healthy fats also. Apples, yeah. Any fruits and vegetables, but apples are so easy. Popcorn is a good one with the fiber. Oatmeal helps you stay full in the morning. Apples and oatmeal together. Cherries, yeah. So we've got lots of good examples there. All right. I was just gonna say no one mentioned whole grains, but Sherry did. Shredded wheat cereal with a banana, so you're getting the fiber from both of those. That's great. All right. So next we have healthy fats. So healthy fats also help us stay full longer. So what we're trying to do is find those foods that are going to keep our energy lasting longer so it doesn't crash. All food's going to give us energy, but when we choose certain foods, we can kind of keep that energy more steady and not go like straight up and straight down. So when we talk about healthy fats, we're talking about omega-3 fatty acids. That's a polyunsaturated fatty acid, and that helps our brain function, and it supports heart health and reduces inflammation. So you can find omega-3s in fatty fish like salmon, herring, sardines, trout, mackerel. Also in walnuts and a bunch of seeds like flaxseed, chia seed, hemp seed, and some eggs have the omega-3 fatty acids. You can also get healthy fats in monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats like olive oil and canola oil, and using those instead of lard or butter, instead of the solid fats. And these, like olive oil and canola oil, those can help reduce cholesterol and decrease our risk of heart attack or stroke. You can use them in salad dressing or sauteing vegetables, seafood, or meat. And then also nuts, peanut butter, avocado, those all have lots of good heart healthy monounsaturated fats. So what are some of your favorite healthy fats? I know we heard some of these already. We heard nuts before, because many of our foods that we like are in several of these categories: avocado, salmon, eggs. Yeah, it sounds like you got a good omelet there, like an avocado, salmon, egg omelet. Apples and peanut butter. That is one of my favorites next too. Easy, good healthy fats. Sunflower, pumpkin seeds, yeah, those are all good. Yeah, so some of these like salmon, require some cooking and preparation, but peanut butter, you got the spoon in the jar, it's pretty easy, or a handful of nuts. So we've got things for when we have time and when we don't have time, both. All right, next slide, please. So vitamins and minerals. So fruits and vegetables have fiber for digestion, and then they also have tons of vitamins and minerals. And these can help our bodies be resilient and adapt to stress. So for example, vitamins A and C are found in red and orange fruits and vegetables. Like we know carrots are good for our eyes, right? That's vitamin A, but also sweet potatoes, yellow peppers, cantaloupe, mango, and then also some things that aren't yellow and red, like spinach, eggs, and oily fish. And then we have vitamin C, which probably all we know is in citrus foods like oranges and lemons, but vitamin C is also real high in kiwi and strawberries and red peppers and broccoli and Brussels sprouts. And then we have B vitamins. So we sometimes call those stress vitamins because they help our body adapt to change. B vitamins are found in dark leafy greens, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and some animal products. And then we wanted to talk about zinc. So zinc is important in promoting healthy nerve growth and function, regulating our neurotransmitter production, and it helps the regulatory processes in the brain. So we get zinc from shellfish, beef, chicken, pork, and also nuts and seeds. So there's so many more vitamins and minerals that we didn't even mention, and they're found in our fruits and vegetables. And that seems complicated. Like, do I have to pick and choose and make sure I'm getting vitamin A and vitamin C and vitamin D? The easiest way to do that is to eat a colorful rainbow of fruits and vegetables every day. And I think we hear that when we talk about kids, like kids should eat a rainbow of fruits and vegetables, but we should too. So which colors of fruits and vegetables do you eat the most? You can put that in the chat. I know lately I've been eating peaches and cherries because they're in season. So I don't know if I have a favorite color year round, but sometimes it changes by the season. Red. So some people do have a favorite color year round, maybe. Or there's just a lot of good stuff in red, greens and reds. Yeah. And the green vegetables you can get year round. So a lot of these, and if I don't know, are we all in California? I think maybe we are. In California, we're fortunate to have lots of good access to fresh fruits and vegetables year round. Yeah, the white peaches are good this year too. Lots of good fruits and vegetables right now. Watermelon, 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 I'm seeing. Yeah, and that is a great way to get extra water and hydration, which is what we're going to talk about next. So the water that we drink and the water that we get from food helps bring all of these nutrients to our brain and to our muscles so that our body is more energized. And we talked about our brain consists mostly of water. So drinking water, like Monica said when we were talking about HALT, water can improve our concentration and our memory and really help balance our mood and emotions. So, beverages that have a lot of sugar and caffeine, those also lead to unstable energy, mood crashes, and sometimes sleeping problems for some people. So if you're feeling low on energy or moody or agitated, try drinking more water. And we want to do that for our kids too. So give our kids water throughout the day instead of drinks like sports drinks or juice or punch or even bottled smoothies, right? Replace as much of that with water as we can. So if you or your kids are having a hard time giving up some of those other sweetened beverages, you can try these tips. You can try flavoring water with fruit or mint. You can try diluting juice with water and avoiding juice for the littlest kids. And you can try mixing juice with sparkling water. So has anyone tried any of those successfully? Replacing sugary drinks with any of these? Flavored water, sparkling water, or any other, do you have any other tips to drinking more water, helping your kids drink more water? You've tried some of these tips? I know, just like, oh, cute water bottle. Yeah, the kids like the cute water bottles. I know for me also, just putting water at the table with dinner was always helpful. Like, this is what we're drinking. Here's your water glass. We don't even talk about it. It's not like, do you want water? Water's just there. And if it's there, people drink it. Sparkling water. Yeah. Sparkling water is fun and yummy. Adding iced water bottles. And that's personal preference, right? Like, some people really like their water ice cold and some people like it room temperature, but it's like, that's a pretty easy one to, we might not want to cater to every single thing our kid wants, but adding iced water bottles is a pretty easy one. Great. Flavored water. Yep. Okay. So next slide. We want to talk about healthy recipes. So, like, where do we get our healthy and delicious recipes? So we're going to do a poll here and see what you think. Where do you get your cooking tips, your recipes, and nutrition information? So you should see a poll coming up on your screen. And I think is this true that you can only pick one? Try picking more than one, but if you can only pick one, just pick the one that calls out to you the most, even though I'm sure many of us get cooking tips from more than one of these options. So social media, internet searches, do you have a favorite website, cookbooks, newspaper, magazines, or friends or family members? Where do you get your cooking tips? We're all looking for more cooking tips. Okay, once you put in an answer, you can see the results from the whole group. And this is anonymous, just in case anyone was waiting or wondering. So I'm seeing cookbooks, favorite websites. Oh, whoops, I can see, oh, sorry, I was not scrolling. Social media. So we've got 40% from social media online groups, 20% from internet searches, and smaller amount for cookbooks, websites. Nobody goes to the newspaper or magazines anymore. A little bit for friends and family. Okay, great. Does anyone want to share in the chat a specific? Okay, I think we can, let's see. Okay, well, I could just make that go away myself. Let's see, does anyone want to share in the chat any specific places that you get recipes? Like a specific cookbook, a specific website, if you want to share with the group, because we're learning from each other here. I've been looking at New York Times recipes lately, but you have to have a subscription to do that. But they do have some good stuff. TikTok, yes, TikTok is great because not only do you see the recipe, but you watch someone do it. And sometimes you need to know what it looks like, right? And also I've taught some cooking classes with teens where they pulled up TikTok and that's how they wanted to look at it. So TikTok can be a great way if you want to share recipes with your kids. Keep It Simple Cookbook and Matching Instagram. Ooh, I don't know that one, but I will check it out. That sounds good. Allrecipes.com. Yeah, allrecipes.com has some really good stuff. And YouTube. Okay, with the New York Times. Great. All right, so let's go to the next slide. And sometimes it can be, it can be hard sometimes to find trustworthy, accurate, and reliable information. Because when you go online, you know, I think at the beginning, we assume everything's true, but we know now that everything isn't true and everything isn't great. So let's look at a couple tips here. We beware of sites with ads. So if they're trying to sell you something, that's a flag that this might not be the best information. So to look for more reputable sources, you want to look at like medical, educational, or professional organizations. You can look at websites that end in .edu, .gov, or .org. So those are government organization websites. All right, we can go to the next slide and we're going to play a video, which is going to introduce you to a website that we like that has some really great recipes and shopping and cooking information. Let's try it.
Whether you're preparing for a family get-together, deciding on what to make for dinner, or sharing recipes across generations, eatfresh.org is here to support you. In addition to over 500 delicious recipes, this mobile-friendly site offers resources and tips designed to make healthy choices easy, enjoyable, and affordable. Let's take a closer look. Browse recipes by category or search for ingredients and keywords in the search bar. Modify recipe serving sizes. Hover over ingredients to see substitutions and learn more, and review nutrition information via the food label. We've compiled some of our favorite recipes into meal plans so you can use the same ingredients in multiple dishes. Our registered dietitians are here to help. Browse the Ask a Dietitian Q&A section or submit your own personalized question via the chat box. The Cultivate a Healthy Lifestyle section is filled with tips on how to improve your healthy habits. Each topic has a try this section to get you practicing healthier habits quickly and easily. Did you know there are more than 16,000 types of apples grown in the United States? That dried lentils can last for up to a year? Each page in the Discover Foods section is filled with information on how to buy, store, and cook new or unfamiliar foods. Eatfresh.org also contains links to find farmers markets and apply for help putting food on the table. Take the eatfresh.org mini course to learn even more ways to support your family's health. Make breakfast easy. Compare foods in the grocery store to choose the healthier, budget-friendly option, and much more. You will receive a certificate after completing this self-paced online course. You can also sign up to receive health tips via text and email too. We'll send you tips on how to make healthy changes for you and your family. Eatfresh.org can be accessed from your computer, mobile device, or tablet, and can be translated into multiple languages. You can also share your favorite recipes, foods, and health tips with friends and family via text message, email, or to social media using the share button. Eatfresh.org is a resource for everyone to enjoy. So try eatfresh.org today and discover new paths to healthier living.
Okay, so I just put the link in the chat, so I hope everybody will check that out on their own. Can the site offer meal preparation for pre-diabetics? It's not that specific, but what it does do is when you're searching for recipes, you can search for low sugar recipes. You can search by meal type, like dinner, snack, lunch. You can search by type of cuisine, so like African foods, Asian foods, Middle Eastern foods. You can search by some different health conditions like low sugar, vegan, preferences like that. So it's not gonna give you meat, but then you can also search for like you can search for recipes with chicken or recipes with beans, things like that. Yeah, so not so personalized. You probably have to go to a dietitian for that. But it does offer some really great, more general information. And then there's also a lot of like pages, health pages, so you can like look up diabetes like that and get a little bit more information. So yeah, hope you'll look there. And all these recipes are pretty inexpensive and simple, like not a lot of complicated ingredients or equipment, and they're tasty. All right, so here's a couple examples of some snack recipes that came from eatfresh.org. So on the far left, there's a yogurt granola kind of parfait thing. In the middle is some kind of hummus bean dip. And on the right, we have a trail mix. So, so you can see like all of these have multiple food groups in them because we're going to talk about how to combine a snack, but you can see like the trail mix has a whole grain cereal, and then it has some nuts, and it has some fruit like raisins. The granola yogurt thing has dairy in the yogurt. It has some granola, which is a cereal, plus maybe some nuts also. And the bean dip is served with a grain and with some veggies. So let's go to the next slide. So to boost our energy and satisfy our hunger, we want to try to have a snack that has something from both of those sides. So something from the protein, healthy fat side that's going to give us like longer lasting energy, and then something from the fruits and vegetables and whole grains that's going to be like more of a quick energy. All right, next. So protein and healthy fats. What are some protein and healthy fats that you and your kids like to eat for snacks? We've got a whole bunch of examples here: nuts, seeds, nut butter, avocados. These are some of the foods that you talked about before. Deli meats, subcut bean dip, yogurt, eggs, glass of milk. Anyone's family like some of these foods for snacks? Salami. Quick, easy. Any other protein snacks people like? I know cheese sticks are super easy. My kids used to like those. Salami and crackers with fruit, ants on a log, classic. And Christine says all your kids love milk and cheese. Yep. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So what about fruits and vegetables? There's millions of options here, right? It's really anything. So any fruit, any vegetable, all of these can be made into good snacks. We've got the raisins for the ants on a log. So like, don't forget, we've got dried fruit, we've got frozen fruit, sometimes canned fruit. And then you can click ahead to the whole grains. So what about whole grains that your family likes? Cereals, tortilla chips, bread. We heard popcorn already. Crackers. Any of these popular? Apples and cantaloupe, most of all. Yum. I didn't really like cantaloupe until my kids started liking it. And then I realized, oh yeah, I like it too. So it kind of went the opposite way from the way usually we think that the adults are introducing the food taste. All the fruits. Oatmeal for breakfast, yeah. Okay, so let's go to the next slide and think about how we're going to combine a snack. So if we want to choose something from the protein and healthy fat category and something from the fruit, vegetable, and whole grain to give us like lasting energy, what are some examples here? And I see one that Stephanie said, my teen makes a weird banana peanut butter tortilla roll-up. And I wonder if your teen went to one of our classes, because we have a recipe on eatfresh.org that we teach in a lot of classes that's called banana sushi, and that's exactly what it is. So I wonder if your kid made that up or saw that in one of our classes, but either way, awesome. So in the banana peanut butter tortilla, you're getting protein from the banana, and you're getting some like quicker energy from the tortilla and protein from the peanut butter, and then quicker energy from banana and tortilla. And Cynthia, you said oatmeal, so that's a whole grain. What could you add to oatmeal from the protein healthy fat side to give it like a little more oomph, a little more lasting energy? Who likes to add things to their oatmeal? Chips and guac is a good combo. You got the healthy fats from avocado, and you got your grains in your chips. So oatmeal, if you make it with milk, you're getting if you make your oatmeal with milk, you're already getting some healthy fats and some protein there. And Christine says we add peanut butter and nuts to oatmeal. Yeah, that's another good way to get some like longer lasting energy. And Margaret said raisins with oatmeal, and that's great. That's also, that's two things on the right side, which is great. As many things as you want, but just think about adding something also from the protein and healthy fats to kind of make your energy last a little bit longer. Peanut butter and celery. Celery is great. You got the peanut butter from the protein side, and then a little bit of crisp, watery, energetic celery from the right side. So these are all really great examples. Let's go to the next slide. So just to kind of sum up our smart snacking tips, sometimes we hear that snacking can prevent us from eating nutritious meals later, or that our kids aren't going to eat later if we're snacking. But kids have small bellies and probably do need to snack, and lots of adults do as well. So these are some ways that we can make our snacks work better for us. So we can combine what we can do is we can make our snacks nutritious like a meal. So we don't think of them as just like snack is unrelated to our food. Snacks are our food, right? They can be just as nutritious as our meals. Then we can consider like high sugar, fatty, salty snacks like chips and candy and soda more as treats. Keep the portions a little smaller, and then we can add something more nutritious. So like if we're serving cookies as a snack, serve a glass of milk. That like really elevates the snack, right? It helps give us that protein and that more lasting power. And then keep something simple and convenient and nourishing around, like the fresh and frozen fruits. I saw this in a comment earlier. Cheese slices, whole grain crackers, nuts, things that people can, that your kids and you can grab when you're hungry and when you're on the go. And when you're on the go, bring some healthy snacks with you to avoid getting hangry or making those impulse purchases. All right, and I see some more good examples in the comments: apples and peanut butter and cheese and crackers. All right, so that's all I got about snacks, and I'm gonna pass it over to Christine.
Thanks, Jennifer. I love just the variety of snacks that you guys shared. And I love too that, a lot of these ingredients are already in many of our pantries and so accessible. Just requires a little bit of creativity on our parts and then some exposure. So yeah, thanks again, Jennifer, for that. And thanks to all of you for your comments. Please keep the interaction going. We really enjoy that and appreciate it. This next section is called Welcome to Our Table. We just want to talk about how we've already talked about how what we feed our children is important, and how we feed them is just as important, if not even more important. And so however brief or long a child's stay in your home is going to be, the warmth and consistency that you provide can be impactful their entire lives. A child in the foster care system often needs special efforts and consideration so that they can feel regulated and have a sense of safety and belonging when they're in your home. So something I want you guys to think about is, how do you help a foster child to feel safe and welcome in your kitchen or at your table? You can go ahead and drop those in the chat. But what I'm going to do is share 3 ways that you can help a child who's new to your home, or even a child who's not new, to feel comfortable and welcome around food. Tip number 1, explain household norms and routines. It's really important to create a sense of ease and predictability by introducing the norms and routines in your home and kitchen. The things that we might take for granted or may seem small or obvious are things that they actually need to be shown and explained. For example, give children a way to signal to you for help or for what they want or need, or even letting them know what they should call you. Also, explain the usual meal routine. And even if a child has been in your home for a long period of time, these norms and routines will often require recurring and gentle reinforcement. Tip number 2, learn about dietary habits and preferences. You can also help a child feel safe and welcome by getting to know their food preferences and habits. Oftentimes, food and feeding issues might be the result of things, small things that we might have overlooked, or a few of you have mentioned earlier in the chat that you would ask them, what was your favorite thing that your mom cooked? And I think that is so special. So being able to really draw those out of your foster children is important, and helps them to feel like their preferences are being heard, and ultimately will help you to feed them. Now it's time for another quick poll. The poll question here is, and we'll wait for those to, there it is. Which of these dietary needs would be most challenging for you to understand? And you can go ahead and select the one that resonates most with you. Vegetarian or vegan diet, halal, wheat allergies, foods for Passover, aversion to certain textures, or aversion to spicy food. So we'll let those come up. Oh, I have to vote. Okay, once I vote, I can see the results. There it is. Okay. So they're coming in. So far, 10 of you have voted about, and we're, seems like halal diets is in the majority. Cynthia, you mentioned texture. Thank you. We see that. Runner up is aversion to certain textures, and then we have vegetarian or vegan. I actually put vegetarian or vegan as one that would be most challenging to me. I already mentioned I love milk and cheese. My kids do, and so I think finding dairy alternatives, vegan alternatives to those dairy foods and to meat. I mean, we love meat also. Okay, so it says here again, halal was the top challenge in this group, and then aversion to textures, vegetarian, vegan, followed by wheat allergies, and then a small percentage of you say aversion to spicy food, and then food for Passover was at 0. Okay. Thanks for sharing. Does anybody have any experience with any of these dietary needs, specifically like the halal and the vegetarian or vegan that you would like to share? If you want to go ahead and drop that in the chat, that'd be great. I'll let you guys answer that, and I'll just keep go ahead. I'll continue to move on here. So the third tip would be to use meal times or other times such as car rides or TV watching. Use those daily mundane moments to build the relationship and to establish a child's sense of belonging and trust. How we connect can go a long way in how successful our other interactions with children are going to be overall. So try not to use mealtime. Try not to allow mealtime to turn into battle time, right? Food can be a really vulnerable and tender subject for foster youth, and we really want to try to approach feeding and eating together gently and compassionately. Discover your feeding style. I'm going to pass it back to Jennifer for this. For a minute, are you there? Okay, there we go.
Yes, sorry, I was answering a question in the chat. So I was just answering that halal foods are the foods associated with Islam, so people who are Muslim. Okay, I'm going to go on. So we're going to talk about feeding style. So let's talk about how we can feed kids to help them have a healthy relationship with food, a positive relationship with you, and reduce feeding challenges. So we all have our own individual reasons for eating what we eat, and here are some of the reasons people eat what they eat. So our own biology, taste and appetite and sensory preferences. We talked about texture and smell and liking spicy foods or not liking spicy foods, and some of that is just hardwired in us, and we're all different. Then we have our experiences. So these are like our learned preferences. This could come from parental input and our past experiences in other homes, good or bad. Then we have interpersonal reasons like our family and our cultural norms and practices. That could include halal or kosher food, like I see that conversation in the chat. And then we have our own internal reasons, our own beliefs and internal motivations and values. And sometimes vegetarian and vegan diets come from people's different attitudes and motivations and values. And our identity. And then last, we have like the environment that we live in. So media, marketing, social norms, and then our access to food. Like we don't all have the same access to the same foods. So this is true for all of us as adults, and this is true for foster youth as well. So this is just a lot to think about, like what influences our relationship with food for each of us. So think about that for yourself. when I was thinking about this question, I was remembering that when I went to college, I lived in a boarding house with a group of like 10 girls. And there was a lot of disordered eating going on, and a lot of people like looking at food labels and criticizing each other's food choices and criticizing my food choices. And I had blissfully been like a little bit shielded from all of this growing up somehow. And I had like like a medium strong sense of confidence for an 18-year-old about my choices in food, but they really tore that down. And I had to rebuild that afterwards. Like, I can choose my own foods and eat what I want. But the people around us and the choices they make and the way people talk about food have a big impact on us. So I don't know if anybody else has thought about how experiences in your past have influenced your relationship with food. And if you want to share that in the chat, you can. It's definitely something to ponder over. It can be helpful. All right, let's let people continue to think, but I'm going to move on. And this is sort of a related question. So we were talking about how our past experiences affect our own relationship with food, but our experiences and beliefs and values and preferences also influence how we nourish others. So like how we feed our kids. And it's helpful to develop some self-awareness about these habits and our relationship to food and our approach to nourishment. So the more we can kind of attune to ourselves, our past, our present, is going to help us become better caregivers. So thinking here about our past experiences and how that shows up in how we nourish others, I was thinking about my mom, who baked a lot for us, partly because she has a sweet tooth, like she loves chocolate, she still does. But she also, she made us birthday cakes, and she shared a lot of family recipes, like her grandmother did a lot of baking. And that definitely influenced me in how I parented and nourished my kids. So I did a lot of baking for my kids. It was also my way of showing love and sharing family traditions. And one of my 26-year-old son is staying with us this summer, and we've been doing some baking together. I've been teaching him some things, and we baked some family recipes, but I've also just been baking a lot for him. And the other day he said, I think we have too many sweets in the house. So it was just a way of noticing that I might be going overboard and looking at other ways that I can show my love and care for him, that it doesn't have to be only, or it doesn't have to be so much showing up in the baking. But I don't know if anybody else has some thoughts on how you were raised or other experiences you had around food, how that influences how you nourish the kids in your house. I see Margaret saying food choices based on preferred foods, budget, seasonal availability. Yeah, if you grow up in California and your farms, fresh food was plentiful, and that's not true for everybody, right? So like we're lucky to have that many of us have that kind of access. Well, I didn't grow up near a farm, but even in California with lots of grocery stores. But yes, those of us who grew up near farms, that's really special, having fresh local food. And Wendy Ann saying you grew up eating a lot of boxed and frozen food. Yeah. And so you think of those when trying to plan a menu, of course, because that's what you know, that's what you're used to. Mm-hmm. So I think this is not to say that any of this is good or bad. This is just what it is. And that when we can acknowledge what's influencing us, then, we understand ourselves better, and then we can keep the parts that we like, and we can add to that. All right, the next slide, please. So understanding our style of feeding is an important step to successfully meet our children's nourishment needs. And this, like we've been saying this a little bit, and we're going to say it stronger now, that the style of feeding can be more important than exactly what we feed. Of course, it's important what we feed as well, but how we feed is super important. So how children eat and how they respond to how you feed them can be affected by many factors. There's physical health, emotional state, ability, disability. So we're going to present some ideas about feeding children that work for many families. And some of these may work for you and your child, and others may not. And we understand that. This is not a rule book. This is like it's an offering to choose from. And also your child may have another parent or relative who also feeds them, and that person may have a very different style of feeding, and that's okay. So you don't need to try to change what the other person does. What's important is that you feel comfortable in your style of feeding. So we can trust ourselves and our children to adjust to some different foods and different styles of feeding. And I see Jocelyn said you grew up with many different cultures of food. Yeah. And you were able to adjust and take from all of those. So that's another example of this. So we're going to look at some common feeding styles. So one way to do that is think about, is this something that you might say or do? So is this something you would say or do? My child should eat what's put in front of them. Or I count bites before letting my child leave the table. Or if my child doesn't eat, they can't have video games or dessert. Is that something that you might do? Let's go to the next slide. So we might call that the clean your plate feeding style. And that might involve telling a child how much and what foods they should eat, not having a lot of trust. You can click through these, Christine. Not having a lot of trust in your child's ability to know when they're full or hungry, bribing, counting bites, not letting the kid leave the table until the adult decides, or threatening or punishing your child for not eating. So Jocelyn says those don't work, right? These often don't work. I'm wondering, did you have a parent who parented that way? Because I'm wondering if anyone has some thoughts on what it was like to have a clean your plate kind of parent. And I also want to say that we're presenting these as sort of extremes, right? Nobody is 100% this way. Or do you have any ideas about why those don't work? All right, we'll keep going, but we'll keep thinking about this. So here's another set of worse. They can lead to a lifetime of weight problems. Yeah, I mean, I think they can lead to just sort of not connecting with your food and your body, right? So like then a child, like, I don't know if I'm hungry or full because you just told me when I was eating or not eating. Okay, Stephanie says, I had that type of parent based on disapproving of wastefulness and not disrespecting the cook, etc., which I totally understand, right? Like none of us want to waste food and all of us want to be respected as parents, as kitchen, as a cook in the kitchen. But is there a way to do that and to teach that and model that so that our kids still have some agency and have some connection to their body? Yeah, and it doesn't work for picky eaters, exactly. All right, so we're going to go on to another feeding style. Is this something you might say or do? If a child doesn't like what I serve, I offer something else. Snacks are always available, or I tend to prepare different meals for each child. So this is another way of feeding. If those are things that you hear yourself saying or doing, we might call that a yes or short order cook style, where you regularly cater to the child's wants at meal times and offer very little structure to snacking, which might lead to grazing throughout the day. So what about that? What about a yes short order cook parent? Did anyone have one of those? And how did that work for you? I don't know this movie, Martin Child. Don't know that movie, but I'm interested. Trauma affects how our children eat or view food for sure. So if you had if you have a short order cook parent, sometimes that can make a child also have this like increased sense of power in the family. Like, oh, I get to decide whatever we eat. Like that's, that gives a child a lot of power in the family. But again, it means that they, it just might make a lot of stress in the family as well, because then the parent doesn't ever get to sit down and relax and eat. Your mom was a short order cook and grandma was a clean your plate short order cook hybrid. Yeah, a lot of hybrids for sure. Martian Child something. Martian Child. Okay, we're gonna watch the movie. Thank you, Jocelyn. Yeah. Okay, so we see that a short order cook might be not enough structure here. So let's go to the last one. So another set of questions. Is this something you might say or do? I think we did that one. Yeah, let's keep going. So I start to think about dinner when it gets close to dinner time. Most days, I don't know when I'll serve food, or if the kids want to eat, they can figure it out. So this is another style. if those somebody who says and does those things, we might call that a fly by the seat of their pants style. So this is a situation where there's not a lot of structured support around food. Can we go to the next slide, please? Not a lot of structure. Meals are unplanned. They're not timed well, and they're not reliable. This was my style all summer long with kids at home. It was hard. Yeah, so this is it's hard being I'm like you're saying, it's hard being the parent there, right? But it's hard being the child there too, right? Because the child is like, I'm hungry. I don't know when I'm getting my food. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can count on my parents. I'm not really old enough to do this myself. So yeah. And Jocelyn said, I've had kids in my home that didn't even know what lunch or dinner meant because they grew up this way, right? Not knowing a lot of structure and stability. Okay. So we're going to do another poll. So I also want to acknowledge again that these 3 styles that we presented, these are extreme. All you have already mentioned that you grew up with some hybrids of these things. And I would imagine that we all can recognize some of this in our own parenting. I know I do. So which of these 3 feeding styles do you recognize in yourself the most? Acknowledging that none of these are going to be, you're not 100% in any of these. And you probably identify with more than one. So which do you recognize in yourself the most? And then after that, I want to know in the chat if anyone wants to describe their style differently, if none of these really capture what you think you do. But go ahead and say which one of these. Okay, I'm going to pick one, and it's anonymous, but I'm going to admit that I was a short order cook. One of my kids just didn't like to eat a lot of things, and I made him a quesadilla every day for a few years. Not exactly proud of that. Okay, so we've got about half of us are, yes, short order cooks because we just want our kids to eat, right? Almost half of us are fly by the seat of their pants parents. Also understandable. We got a lot going on, right? It's really hard to do this. We don't have any clean your plate parents. That's interesting. But some of you were raised that way. And it looks like we're split between the short order cooks and the fly by the seat of their pants.
I'll admit,
Okay.
I'm not generally a clean your plate parent, but I have clean your plate moments because I know when my children would rather go outside and play, and that they'll be coming back 5 minutes, 10 minutes later. So, and I try not to make it a threat, but certainly saying things like, well, if you plan to, shoot that many basketballs, do you think you have enough fuel? Trying to make it a game.
Right.
Not so militant about it necessarily, but so I admit that I do have those moments.
And it's not, and I know I started this framing of admitting, like, these aren't necessarily bad, right? Bad is if you're stuck in one thing and you can't see the big picture and pull tools from your toolkit, right? That can be challenging. But if we just sort of notice what we're doing and then check and see if it works, I think that is our key. Like, what's working for me? And if it's not working, what can I do about it? Okay. Stephanie says she's pretty balanced. Okay, Wendy Ann says, none of the above. I serve meals. I also let kids choose to eat or make their own meal. With young kids, you help them, right? Feeding time is always stressful. Yeah, feeding time is stressful. That is one thing we should all admit to. Feeding time is stressful. 2 children that are complete opposites, that can happen. Okay, so again, most caregivers do a combination of these styles, and sometimes we parent differently around food depending on our circumstances and stress level. And some days may need to be less structured, and some days we have more patience and more time. We don't have to do it perfectly all the time. And I think what we're looking for here is if you find that you or your family members or the children in your household are not enjoying meal times, that's a time that you want to address your feeding style and see what we can do. What can you do that might be helpful? So think about why you use the style of feeding that you use, and has this ever caused conflict for you? I don't know. I hear people saying, yes, there is sometimes conflict and there is sometimes stress, and that is to be expected. So, all right, so we're gonna keep going. So we're going to talk some more about these feeding styles. So feeding styles that are highly controlling, which was sort of like the Clean Your Plate Club kind of caregiving, or very permissive or very neglectful, are associated with poor eating habits and behaviors. And Stephanie's saying, yes, conflict occurs when I'm rigid about meals. So I think that's what's really great, is like noticing when there's conflict and kind of associating that, that might be something I'm doing. I wonder if I can loosen up or do something different. I used to stress and make multiple types of food. Then the only other option was PB&J or grilled cheese. Right. So you're offering an option, but you've found an option that works for you. Like, this is what I'm willing to do, and this is what I'm not willing to do. So that's like you've identified an issue and then come up with a solution that works for you. So that's great. Regularly using foods as punishment or rewards or for soothing can create an unhealthy relationship to food. And we talked about that earlier. And children in foster care might have experienced a combination of all these styles depending on the homes that they came from. So they might be out of touch with their hunger and fullness cues, and that can lead to overeating, undereating, anxiety, or just like more preoccupation and worry around food and difficult mealtime behaviors. And that's what we're trying to get away from. So the ideal way to feed and care for a child is one that's not too loose, that fly by the seat of the pants or short order cook, and not too rigid, like the Clean Your Plate Club. So we want to adopt a mix of choice and structure. So children learn eating habits and behaviors by watching and mirroring what the adults and the environment offer. So the most balanced approaches to feeding feature adult behaviors and an environment that model desirable habits and interactions. They have consistency and predictability, caregivers taking primary responsibility for offering this balance of foods, and caregivers who gently guide a child to make their own good choices. So as a foster caregiver, those first two are really the important ones, and you might need to be more flexible about the last two. So we're going to watch another video, and this is a video about a model of feeding called the division of responsibility. And this model, we're talking about the relationship between the caregiver and the child. So the roles and responsibilities that you each have during meal times. All right, let's try this video.
Hello, my name is Grace Bell, and I am a certified nutrition specialist with a master's degree in clinical nutrition. I was also born and raised in the foster care system until the age of 9, when I was adopted. In the last 3 of these years, I lived in a therapeutic residential facility. For the past 5 years, my family has fostered children of all ages from infancy through the teen years. I would like to share with you the division of responsibility in feeding, a model of feeding that was developed by Ellen Satter, and how you can use it to help with feeding the children in your home. Ellen Satter is a dietitian and family therapist who noticed the importance of the caregiver-child feeding relationship. She defines the feeding relationship as the interactions between a caregiver and child that happen when they engage in food selection, ingestion, and regulation behaviors. The quality of this relationship is important because it impacts a child's future eating behaviors. Trauma can also impact children's ability to develop these relationships, so we must be especially patient and gentle with them and ourselves. The division of responsibility in feeding are a set of guidelines that describe what the caregiver and child are each responsible for within the feeding relationship. After this video, you can review the DOR in detail in your handouts. In short, the caregiver is responsible for what food to feed, when, and where the food will be fed. The child is responsible for whether they will eat and how much of the food they will eat. Therefore, the caregiver provides and the child decides. So what does this mean in practice? It means that the caregiver provides a variety of foods that include foods the child likes without catering to wants, along with foods that the caregiver would like the child to eat. The caregiver provides foods consistently and predictably. The caregiver provides an example of how they would like the child to behave at the table. The caregiver provides opportunities to connect at the table. And finally, the caregiver provides trust in their child's ability to eat and grow as they need. And the child decides what foods they will eat, so what looks appealing or safe for them, and how much food their body needs to grow predictably. Children have a natural understanding of what their body needs, and those that do not can learn their hunger and fullness cues through practice and conversation. The idea behind these guidelines of responsibility is to build a mutually trusting relationship between the child and caregiver that encourages the child's success with developing their feeding capabilities. In other words, caregivers can earn their child's trust by trusting their child's capability to learn. Responsive feeding is not about doing everything right all the time. So it's not about being right or wrong. It simply helps provide clarity so caregivers can balance their responsibilities with their children's individual needs. It helps us establish what we have control over and what we don't. This is the point from which we can deal with behavioral challenges at the table and to positively guide children towards balanced eating habits with fewer power struggles and stress. We can even apply the DOR in unconventional situations, such as feeding a child with special needs or feeding a child who has experienced trauma. An example I like to use when explaining how to apply these guidelines in unique situations is of my family's very first foster child. Our first foster child was almost 5 years old when he first arrived at our home. He would eat just 6 items of food: applesauce, canned mac and cheese, plain noodles with butter, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, crackers, and the occasional slice of pizza. We were unaware of his food challenges at dinner the night he arrived, and when he was served the meal, he wouldn't eat. So I asked if he could try just 1 bite of chicken. Being in a new home, he obliged, but as the chicken got closer to his mouth, he looked at me with panic in his eyes and began to cry. I realized he was afraid to try the chicken and he was not asked to finish it. It took months, a lot of patience, and a little encouragement on our part, but he eventually tried the tiniest bite of broccoli. We all cheered him, and he seemed genuinely surprised by his success. So what worked for us? Once we learned what foods he would eat, we always offered him those and put the family meal on his plate as an option. We offered new foods in tiny and non-intimidating amounts. For instance, I slowly started to add tomato sauce to his noodles by the teaspoon until he was eating pasta with sauce. I would add 1 new item to his lunch. Sometimes he would eat it, sometimes he wouldn't. We didn't pressure him, but we did use encouragement because although it doesn't fit within the DOR guidelines, sometimes our children who have experienced trauma need a little extra support. We allowed him to decide what and how much he wanted to try of a new food. We considered tiny bites a huge success. We also used a box of conversation starters to connect with him during mealtimes. The DOR approach can also be applied to different ages and developmental stages of children. This is discussed in the next video.
Okay, so we heard Grace talk about this division of responsibility. I don't know if anybody has heard of this before. If anybody, we see some emojis, if like a thumbs up or something, if anyone has heard about this before. I know it was new to me a few years ago. So the division of responsibility, this is like a little recap of what we just saw, means offering reasonable expectations and structure to feeding while still being responsive to a child's needs and likes, allowing the child to make food choices based on their fullness and preference, and supporting kids in developing autonomy around what goes in their bodies. So next, so this is the real basic of it. Caregivers have certain roles and responsibilities, and your children have roles and responsibilities. So it's I find this a little freeing. It's like that your job, you have some jobs to provide things, but you can't be responsible for what your kid puts in their body. So the caregivers provide a variety of foods, including foods the child likes without catering to wants, along with foods the caregiver would like the child to eat. So like Grace said, she offered some new foods every time, but she always included foods that she knew her child would like. The caregiver is going to provide food consistently and predictably, an example of how they would like the child to behave at the table, opportunities to connect at the table, and trust in their child's ability to eat and grow as they need. At the same time, children are deciding what foods they will eat and how much food their body needs to grow predictably. So I would love to hear if there's anything on this list that you've done and been successful with. Does any of this look like something that you have done and it worked well for you? I know some of you said earlier that you try to include foods, like take your kids shopping and let them choose some food. So that would be including foods that they like. Maybe it's easier to think about what has been hard. So is there anything about this style of feeding that would be hard for you to do? Because I think it sounds easy when you look at it on the slide, but doing it in real life is definitely harder. Would it be hard to be okay with your kid not eating? That's hard sometimes, right?
I would say that, oh, my video's off. I would say that it would be difficult to find to grow that variety of foods to offer to the children without, you also don't want to waste the food, right? And so really you can't just buy a teaspoon of sauce. And so that's one thing that I am, trying to figure out, like as a future resource parent, and even as a parent and a caregiver who has had foster children in my home, family members in my home. I've experienced this, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you said you, Sherry, always choose and offer foods they like and are willing to eat. Most come with a list of allergies. That's super helpful, right? When you know what your kids can eat and can't eat. Whoops, I lost that. Offer the family, and you need to accommodate, obviously. Conversation jar at the table is fun. Yeah, I love that too. So like in your guide, when you do get your guidebooks, there's some conversation questions in there that can give you something to talk about, and like it's a way of modeling healthy, happy behavior at the table. Yeah, it is hard when kids choose not to eat or when they want to be all done and you don't think they've eaten enough. It's a little hard and scary to trust that their bodies are saying the right thing. Margaret says, I'd be okay with a child not eating, but I'd prefer them to try it. Yeah. I mean, it's like you want them to try it, but there's a place where we have to let go, right? And let them have some agency there. And that can be hard. Anything new here that you would consider trying? All right, well, we'll carry on. So on the next, start slow and work on the relationship and not worry as much about the food. I love what you said about that, Sherry, is like, it's true. It's just like, it's so, I think we're just, we're wired to think about the food, like the food is what matters if they eat the broccoli or not. But yeah, taking smaller bites, not fussing about it so much, just trying to pull back the energy about if they eat a specific food or not, and work on building a relationship and making that mealtime more positive. So how can we make that mealtime less stressful? Let's go to the next slide. So again, how you feed your child is as important as what you feed them. And we've talked about feeling frustrated about wasting money and time preparing a meal that a kid won't eat. or worrying that they don't get enough food or enough good nutrition. And what if they don't ever develop good eating habits? I'm sure we've all wondered some of those things, but here are some tips. So again, your job is to offer, and the child's job is to eat or not eat. We want to offer a variety of foods, including some that your kids like. Exposing kids to new foods in a less stressful way can help them be less picky, and kids may need to try new foods 10 or more times before they know if they like it. It's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, as Christine said, you can't go buy like a teaspoon of eggplant to see if your kid likes it. Like, you're kind of committed, you make the eggplant, but to try to find ways where you can give your kid a small portion of new foods. You can also try to troubleshoot how the food is presented. So do your kids prefer that foods don't touch? Do they like their dips and sauces on the side? Do they like raw vegetables over cooked vegetables? You can ask children what they would change about a meal, and sometimes it is something that you could fix easily, like salad without dressing or a separate plate so that sauce won't touch the foods. Like, it's not always a complete overhaul. So look for those small wins. And then try serving family style, letting your kids serve themselves, choosing what they want, how much of each food they want. This can make there be just a lot less pressure at the meal, and kids will start to develop autonomy over their food choices. And they'll also develop motor skills and practice table manners. And if that doesn't work, you can try serving smaller portions. Being sensitive to tics and triggers is awesome. No stress. Yeah. Mixing and touching is an individual preference that matters more than you think. It does. And that's something that, that's something that maybe as a parent you can be flexible about. Like, you're not going to make a whole separate meal, but you could give a bigger plate or some, foods on 3 different small plates. That might be something that you are willing to do. And then the last one on this slide is offer meals and snacks at consistent and predictable times. Kids are going to be hungry between meals. Their tummies are smaller. So when kids can count on regular meals and snacks, they'll be less grumpy and they won't fill up too close to meal times. All right, let's go to the next slide. We also want to help kids recognize when they're hungry and full. Like Christine was saying, your kids are about to go outside and play basketball. Like, do you really have enough energy in your belly to go out there and play? Or do you have room for a little bit more? And help kids recognize, like, what does it feel like to be full? What does it feel like to be hungry? We can be more relaxed around food, put less pressure on eating or eating certain foods, help everybody be a little more relaxed. We want to keep up the conversation. We want to model. Sorry, I got a little lost. Model the habits and interactions, and we should ourselves eat new foods, eat a variety of foods. And it's really okay if kids don't eat very much at some meals. We got to trust a kid's ability to eat and grow. And again, it can be helpful here to think about long-term goals. Like, the long-term goal is helping kids know if they're hungry or full, helping them learn to feed themselves, eat a variety of foods over time. All of that is more important than eating one perfect meal at tonight's dinner. Okay, so to recap what we've covered today, we talked about how dysregulated people cannot help others. When you or your child are overwhelmed or stressed, we can try HALT to reflect on what you or your child may need. We talked about how movement and balanced meals and snacks can help support good mood and energy levels, and that the best feeding style is a mixture of structure and choice. And then our next lesson, we're going to talk more about nutrition for the family, and that's in 2 weeks on August 28th, same time. And we will look at realistic and creative ways to provide healthier meals, how to help your household eat more fruits and vegetables, understanding special needs and issues around weight and body size. And we'll share some tips for healthy and budget-friendly shopping. So that was a lot. I know that was a lot of information. So let's all take a deep breath together. This is part of just getting back in our bodies. So deep breath in and blow it out. We're going to remind ourselves that perfect parents exist, but they don't have kids yet, meaning there's no such thing as a perfect parent. We want to be compassionate to yourself. You're doing the best that you can. We all are with what we know. We're all here to learn and grow. I don't think you have access to your guidebooks yet, but you're going to get a guidebook, a handbook where there's a lot more information on these topics because we breezed through a lot, and you'll be able to look at it more closely. And then lastly, think about what you've learned and heard and experienced in today's workshop. And if you want to share an answer to one of these questions in the chat, that would be great. So either something that was surprising to you, something that was helpful, something you previously believed, but you're going to let go of it, and something you want to learn more about in the coming weeks. So if anyone wants to share any of those things in the chat, or any questions that you have for me or Christine, feel free to do that. Yeah, I mean, I think we know it's hard to feed kids, and it's that much harder in the foster care system, but it doesn't get a lot of attention. We want to be mindful of children's needs at mealtime. Smaller portions and inviting your kids to help one day a week. That's great. That is the kind of small and realistic step that someone can make, right? We're not setting our, saying we're going to do a huge overhaul of how we cook or feed our kids is not going to be successful, but picking one small thing. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been great. Thank you all. And we really, really appreciated all of your interaction in the chat box. That was great. It almost feels like we're all together in a room. Instead of a hot meal, I'm preparing charcuterie board with cold meat, cheese, nuts, fruits, and vegetables. Everyone can take what they like. I love that. It's like, it's fun, it's pretty, it's new, and everyone it's serving family style. People can take what they like. Okay, I'm very confused. I Eat Lucky Charms, The Martian Child. Is that the name of the movie now? I Googled it and wait, I did see Martian Child, and it's family sci-fi from 2007. Okay. Well, we really enjoyed all of you too. So, Jaylena, anything else that anyone wants to add? Reminder to come back in 2 weeks. We will be here again, and we look forward to that.
I believe on the next slide, it does have the link to the webinar. I will put it in the chat also. That way, for lessons 2 and 3, if you wanted to register for those, you can go ahead and do that. I did email a reminder for lesson 2 yesterday, so hopefully you got that. But here is the webinar series link in the chat. So thank you again, everyone, for participating in this wonderful training. If you have any questions, you can email us at the Caregiver webinar at dss.ca.gov. Also, our website, and then also our Caregivers for Youth Policy and Support Unit email, caregiversforyouth@dss.ca.gov. And then again, anybody who did need a certificate of attendance, I did also put that again in the chat. You can email info@cacaregivers.org and you will get your certificate that way. But that concludes our webinar. Thank you again for participating. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, and thank you all for your engagement. We'll
Yes.
see you in 2 weeks.
Take care. Okay, I can